The artist is present. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Performance Anxiety's 33rd online reading event, How the Time Flies to Get to Your Jesus Reading. My name is Tom Snarsky, and I'm so excited to be your host for this evening's reading. In case you haven't listened in before, Performance Anxiety is an online reading series hosted via Skype, usually on the third Thursday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. At each of our events, we feature a group of invited readers whose work we love to share a selection of their writing with us. Having slots every month means we're always looking for folks who'd be interested in reading. So if you are or know a poet or writer who'd be interested in sharing their work at a future event, please get in touch. If anything I've said so far strikes your fancy, we'd love to hear from you via the Performance Anxiety Twitter account. We're Performance ANXT on Twitter, or you can DM the co-organizers directly. I'm at Tom Snarsky on Twitter and Instagram, TOMSNARSKY, or you can email me at tomsnarsky@gmail.com, same spelling. You can also get in touch with Kristin Garth, Performance Anxiety's other co-organizer, who I'm excited to introduce right now as our first reader of the night. So Kristin Garth is a Pushcart, Rissling-nominated sonneteer and a Best of the Net 2020 finalist. Her sonnets have stalked journals like Glass, Yes, 521, Luna Luna, and more. She's the author of Crow Carriage from Sweet Tooth Storybooks and The Stakes from Really Serious Literature, among many, many, many more titles. She's the founder of Pink Plastic House, a tiny journal, and co-founder of Performance Anxiety, this very reading series. So thank you, Kristin, for being here and for leading us off this evening. Take it away.
Thank you. I was excited tonight that we have some editors here from One Art, and so I wanted to read a poem that, I'm going to read two poems that they published. But the first one, they just nominated for Pushcart, so that made me really happy, and it's about Monica Lewinsky and just my own experiences when I was working that age as a stripper and in a small puritanical town where I guess men were kind of empowered by her, the shaming, I guess, of Monica Lewinsky in a way that made a lot of people feel maybe presidential. And so anyway, this is called Sometimes a Cigar is Not Just. Inside a Florida strip club, 98, you can still smoke the cigars they stock, so management creates a roll call ripped from the headlines that mocks a 22-year-old girl, median age of the ones who twirl before tourists, titans of this tiny town. Cigar in hand, circle around until we're picked for a tryst, topless, then helped to the ground, to emulate a power disparity that makes men feel presidential while we gyrate through the regulations of Puritans, always frustrate. You can only demean, never penetrate our skin, or the sheen of glittery sweat. We are all interns, lest we forget, in what is still a male carousel where we consent here to turn. Ribbon ponies they harness, not for sale, rented, thighs burn. Mimicking rides, hundreds who never even touch. Runaways accruing crop marks, existential dreads, these slut-shaming games forever played out in woman-childish suburban heads, compete now with a voice louder than them. The young outlive the withering dead women who forgo berets, bitter days you reigned. We have the last word about all the pain. You abandoned us too, the joke you allowed us to be. For we all made mistakes like these in our 20s. My own spent dancing for crowds of married men who won us on our knees. Sometimes I would submit to the least worthy of these. There was no presidential seal made surreal by the indignities they imposed. Cigar cellophane peeled while I took off my clothes made it as lewd as details disclosed by Kenneth Starr, Matt Drudge. Was I just passive, or did I collude in these cigar strip club role plays that condemned her and ourselves in fraught, dated thoughts? Sometimes a cigar is just not. And the next one I'm going to read is called Obedience School. And it's a little bit less serious. But anyway, I'm there that day. You send the last away. With nipping needle teeth, she may outgrow one day. The half-hearted sobriquet, uttered as you latch her last leash, then go. She was the favored, younger child who never returned, I know, because she growled and made you bleed, transmogrified wild by desperate need. She recedes uncowed from your conditioned world where I live on, the educated girl, determined, even when disciplined, that my denouement will find me licking at your feet again, while you ponder whether you have grown cruel. It is a word unlearned at obedience school. And the next poem I'm going to read is I've been working on this anthology with a friend of mine about Sofia Coppola and Kirsten Dunst and the collaboration of films that they did together. And Sofia Coppola has said she has a real attachment to working with Kirsten Dunst, that just brings out something in her. And it's just, you don't see a lot of one, female directors, but two that have worked with the same actress a lot. So it's the ultimate, female gaze in cinema. And so we wanted to explore that. And this poem I ended up not using for the anthology. We used two poems as our editorial note, but this one I just wrote for another journal because it was on my mind. And it's called Are You the Little Death? And it's about the virgin suicides. A few weeks after Mrs. Lisbon shut the house in maximum security isolation, the sightings of Lux making love on the roof began. Will you last 5 minutes on my parents' roof above the place my sister died? Will I be worth a quiet jaunt through child abuse toward homemade salad dressing spermicides? I must store for more in my own slate blue lake I climb upon to drown beneath starlight. Will you abandon me like some mistake while I'm dissipating in plain sight? A teenager in winter who called you on the phone. Any number I remember is better than being alone. At dawn, I do my sleeping lollygagger, limber inside a bedroom where I cannot breathe. Are you the little death I at last can leave? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Kristin, for starting us off tonight and for sharing those poems with us. That, again, was Kristin Garth, who you can find on Twitter at Lola and Jolie, LOLAANDJOLIE. And you can keep track of all the awesome stuff Kristin is up to, new books, new anthologies that she's editing, the work at her Pink Plastic House, the Tiny Journal, on her website, which is Kristin Garth, KristinGarth.com. And feel free to reach out to Kristin if you're interested in reading as well, or if you're just, intimidated by my presence or something. So without further ado, I am extremely excited to introduce our second reader, who kindly DM'd me on Instagram and who I was like, yes, I'm so excited to hear some of the poems that I see on Instagram, which are so, so beautiful. And that is Anthony Aguero. And Anthony Aguero is a queer writer in Los Angeles, California. He has his first forthcoming collection of poetry, which we're super excited about, called Burnt Spoon, Burnt Honey. It's coming out from the amazing Flower Song Press. So thank you, Anthony, for being here with us and for sharing some work. I'm excited to hear it, so fire away. Oh, for some reason, I can't hear you, though, Anthony. Can other people hear Anthony? Oh, I'm so sorry, Anthony. Do you want to see if maybe if you mute and unmute it works? Did I mute you? Oh, God. Not yet. It's okay. We can always do some post-production magic here as need be. So let me see if maybe... I wonder if maybe we can try you leaving the call and rejoining or seeing if that works. Yeah, Skype is, doing its amazing work as a cutting edge platform designed by Bill Gates himself, etc. So we'll see if we re-adding Anthony. So, imagine that screen they show on, 70s TV with the test pattern, and we'll all be back soon. Shoot, I see you asking if you can hear us, or if we can hear you, and I can't hear you yet. I was gonna say maybe if you do the audio and video settings on the side, if there's any way to change the audio device. Sometimes it used to mess me up before. It would like put my, onboard mic versus my headphones mic or something. So maybe if you want to try and see if you can change the audio device. I can't hear you quite yet. The other thing I was going to ask is if you're on a computer, if you have a phone where you could join in, because sometimes we've had people call in on their phones, and I can send you, if it's cool, I'll DM you the join link on Instagram, and we'll see if we can make the magic happen. Per John's comment earlier, this is now really the wizard of the curtain and the this and the that and the. All right, so let's do.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
All right.
amazing.
I joined in with my phone.
Do you? Yay. Do you mind if I reintroduce you?
Oh yeah.
I know it's gonna be sort of awkward. Yeah, so I'll just with the recording I'll do a little bit of that, and then it'll be perfect. So our next reader, who I'm really excited to introduce, who DM'd me on Instagram and let me know that he'd be willing to share some of the amazing poems that he posts there with us, is somebody I'm really excited to hear work from and who has a new collection coming out. That is Anthony Aguero. And Anthony Aguero is a queer writer in Los Angeles, California. His first forthcoming collection of poetry, called Burnt Spoon, Burnt Honey, is coming out soon with Flower Song Press. So thank you, Anthony, so much for being here with us, and I hope you'll read from the new book.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey everybody. Just getting over being sick, so I sound a little bit congested today. So bear with me. So I'll be reading stuff from a new collection that I've been working on that follows the war on drugs. And then I'll be reading two of the poems, one of my closing poems from the collection that's coming out with Flower Song Press, and another poem that's in there that will be out with Heavy Feather Review in their upcoming issue. So a movement, okay, one moment. All right. So a movement begins, 1984. Just say no. I put a light blanket over his body. Because it was cold, I watched it cascade, beginning at the toes, ending at the nape of the skull. I called him beautiful once, last week, so fragile, light as the winter air, and his eyes stayed stuck on me, sustaining nothing. I considered leaving the heater on, but we were poor. The mutt came to lick his hands. I shooed him away. His eyes stayed stuck on me until I realized the cold finds a way, even inside of a warm body. The tender drip from a leak in another room, a rodent fierce and scurrying amok. I picked even the ugliest weeds and put them in a vase, just for him. Once, I radically kissed him, behind his ear, and he smiled something righteous. He kissed me back. Even the splinters kept their color once. I opened my mouth, begging him to come back. Even the blanket atrophies. And this next one is titled Schaefer Commission Report on Marijuana and Drugs, 1973, with a quote stating, "The Commission believes that the contemporary American drug problem has emerged in part from our institutional response to drug use. We can, I'd like to, there's a difference. Mother cuts her tongue from drowning, and still the blood substitutes as tears. My son, please sleep. The illusion itself is lust, not love. Give me, you're mine. Nothing ever belonged to me, that is, until the black tar of the moon, or a small white poppy touched and bruised. Please define to me drug abuse. Incorrect. It is darkening early. A dead beloved shivers. He holds his throat and a dirty needle. Neither of them speak, neither of them tell, and another 15 years gone too soon. In another voicemail, father says, sorry, 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 sorry. Rain beating his cheeks. A man at breakfast shuffles his food around with a bent fork. Herein lies a problem. The man kissed his food, unhungered. Who is the abuser? The hand, fist, or movement? Leave me out of it, he says. No, pleads. Why do you use? Don't answer that. My father dies again, water in his lungs, yet I remain thirsty. He insists on white flowers. That is, until you handed it to me. This next one is titled Sounds of My Father. Product of a tearing page was my first knowledge of my father's sounds. He pounds the hollow wall, meaning a pugilist of rage. Anger when the drugs inhabit the river of him, or when the cuffs clamp shut. Shut, another sound near to clamp, or the verb to cuff. He is quieted away, not this time for violence, but an infraction or a puff of drugs. The drugs revere him. They are rivering him away. He is watered away before I can say I love. I adhere to love by means of applause, of laugh, of joy, by means of recreation of my father, and all his galloping sounds. He tears a blank paper, says, now draw a better me before they hunt me. This next one is called Failed Policy. This building toppled. Grapes crushed like a bag of heads fast asleep. Last night, the DEA surrounded my grandmother for the poppies being recognized as too red. This angered them. She came here with a taut English, darker skin. This too angered them. Last night, the red poppy so experienced. An officer demands, burn these red things. Instead, she burns her regulated hair. So an officer beats her to an inch of death. She says, he had beautiful blue eyes that I could never touch. The DEA never touch her red poppies. In the story, the moon is essential and full. Bright, men with guns, grandma doing the dishes, nobody running, not yet. Last night, the poppies like blood, snores in the house, and a grenade click before the mouse squeaks. And this next one is titled Addiction. The water touching my lips, hardly, wet and deliberate, a downpour. Kissing one's lips without danger, a sharp needle tipped with rust, a school of flies deserting a ripe peach. Last night, the black sky, mosquitoes scouring my untouched thigh. Antiseptic, I thought, his offering. Red and blue, no sound. Two strangers brushing their wounds in passing. Yes, yes, my mouth mouths. And these two are going to be the ones that will be coming out in my collection. This one is titled Christian. I have a lot of poems regarding Christian. Christian, I promised I wouldn't talk about ghosts again. Something is rustling under my chest. Your church is alone in the middle of the desert. Inside the desert, it smelled like your throat. There's something occupying space, something abandoned, living or righteous. Doesn't matter since we're at grief. My sight is rearranged to see spots of red. To see your fingers as a match as you strike the room ablaze with a single votive candle. It requires an expedition to cut and cover and excavate the site of any ruin. Help me. Your apartment is still there. Is still there. Is still the same. Should we build an effigy of our living together? I can't help you anymore, lodged in my throat like melted rock. Here I am, trying to rewrite a piece of paired ruin, the crash, reduction, a body revoked of its thirst. I offer you the pool of my body to reverse the infection crowding your narrow throat. The color of your pupils before the water drowns them again, forever. The church is burning, it is in flames, the dead have found the location of our ruin. The kid in my tongue tastes the body too familiar. I have to blow this candle out now, I'm sorry, I promised. And this last one would be the closing poem to that collection, titled I Was. I was in a big house, full moon, directionless, but I was safe. And the birds. There was a fluttering in the chest, but it was teeth falling down a flight of stairs mistaken for a case of wings. I was in a big house, many rooms, no stars, and assumed safety. And the hands. The mangoes were ripe, and a thief stole all but one sweet, plump infant right from the branches of his tree. I was in a big house, no rooms, many lights, and my breathing, and the murder. To defeather a bird, one must first kill. So they killed the bird. A million birds fell from the empty night sky. I was in a big house, full moon like a ripe melon, many rooms. Let me keep you safe. Go, run. Thank you.
Wow, what a note to end on. Thank you so much, Anthony, for sharing those poems. And those last couple, as you heard, are from Anthony's new collection coming out from Flower Song Press called Burnt Spoon, Burnt Honey. So please check it out. And also check out the rest of Anthony's work. I love to follow the poems that he'll post on social media, especially Instagram. And you can follow Anthony on Twitter and Instagram at She's Not In Sorry, SHESNOTINSORRY. Wow, and what a great way to have us get in the moon poem when I think there's an eclipse tonight, at least visible some places. So that's pretty rad. Cool. I love that, with these smaller like reading orders and with a smaller set of people, it's kind of like vertiginous how quickly we move through the order. So we're actually already at our third reader of the evening, who I'm very excited to introduce because he did the kindness of introducing me and a few other people recently at his reading series, which is amazing and which I hope you will check out as well. Our next reader is David Wojciechowski, and David Wojciechowski is the author of Dreams I Never Told You and Letters I Never Sent from Goldwake in 2017. He's an adjunct instructor and freelance designer living in Albany, New York. David can be found online at www.davidwojo.com, DAVIDWOJO.com, and on Twitter at Mr. Wojo Rising. So David, thank you for being here. It's not Zoom Pro, but I think you're going to take to it just fine.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. The reactions are a little better on Skype. But no, thanks, Tom, for inviting me, and thank you, Tom and Kristin, for putting the whole reading series together. I can't believe you're already at 33. That's pretty impressive. So I'm going to read, I think, just a bunch of relatively recent stuff. It's been a long time since I've read, so I didn't realize I kind of accumulated a lot more stuff than I realized. So I was kind of at a loss for what to do here. But this is all stuff that I think is from the past couple of months, mostly from the summer. And this first one, the title comes from, I have this book of Polish aphorisms that I'm trying to, if I ever get stuck, I just pull a title and try to write a poem based on that title. So this first one's called On the Neck of a Giraffe, a Flea Begins to Believe in Immortality. We learn things from high up. We learn falling. We learn balloon. We learn about clouds and wind, patterns in atmosphere, and moisture and falling. We look around at all of the air, and some of us see nothing. Some of us see all that nothing and think it is all gone. They think they outlived it all, and then they worry that they will live forever. This next one is also titled after a Polish aphorism. It's called Open Sesame, I Want to Get Out. You put down your paper and your pipe and decide to go to the old secret cave of treasure, the one with the hidden entrance. You push back your chair and walk out of the kitchen, down the carpet made of clouds toward the door. The hall lined with paintings, each with a head that turns as you walk by. Everything is gold. At the door, you turn the knob and enter the sweet night air. Or you don't. You've been in this cave the whole time. You forgot a light, and the years have passed, and you have gone quite mad in the darkness. You said it to get into the cave, but you haven't repeated it to get out. One doesn't expect it to work like aloha, but it does. Open sesame means let me in, but it also means let me out. These next two I wrote while watching old episodes of Gumby. I adore that show. This one's called What We Found When We Left. We've got two chairs, and we watch as the earth shrinks in our rear view. We learn to go forward. We lean to go forward. We didn't tell anyone the flying saucers would be us. We can land on planets and find them to be worlds in miniature. One with a small train you could ride like a small horse. One covered in small pianos. One covered in small dinosaurs, which are still rather large and terrifying. We can upset the locals and never mean to. We can be sorry. Sorry for what we did. Sorry for what we said. Sorry for the miniature planets. Sorry we ever left. We put the earth in our front view. We learn to go home. We're in the flying saucer and we're coming home. Again, another Gumby poem, also involving dinosaurs. There seems to be a theme. This one's called Dinosaurs, Time Travel, The End of the World. What can you tell me about reptiles? I can tell you I've transported myself back in time, and now they're all much larger than me. This seems to be a pattern in my life. Back in time, I built a fence to keep my present safe. It's a good thing I brought tools with me. I don't understand the butterfly effect. I mean, I do, but here I am, doing things in a past that I shouldn't be in. What can you tell me about the end of all time? I can tell you I'm stuck back here watching it all happen. The ground shakes. With a large enough rock, we can stop the end. We can block the door. We'll be okay. And I'm going to read a few from, I don't know, I want to call it a recent manuscript, but the poems are all from 2018. I just only in the past year or so got it into manuscript shape. So this one's called Alligator and Man, Sword and Swallower. Confidence in the future is waning. The moon tries to pull me out. Around my ankles, the jaws of an alligator, a gentle bite. The teeth around the skin form a gate to a small portal. I stretch for the moon, but there's no grass, no weed, no root, no hold. I swallow the moon. The alligator swallows me whole and returns to the wild. When it sleeps, I am removed from its mouth by myself, like a sideshow act, staged for the nocturnal animals, for the absence of light. And when I feel more teeth and more teeth at my skin, my sideshow is endless. It's hard to worry. I am both sword and swallower, both in and outside of the alligator. I'll just read two more. This one's called Drifting Like Spirits Part 2. If you want to hear Part 1, you gotta check out my book. It's kind of an accident that I had a Part 2. I just realized I think I just kind of repeated a line that I had written years before and realized it after the fact, so I decided to make it a Part 2. So Drifting Like Spirits Part 2. I dream of a way, far away, or close away. My passport lapsed, expired years ago. You knew that. On tests, I always guessed true because I wanted something veiled in the back of my mind. Let go of the earth, the grass. Lose track of the duration of your sleep. Lose track of if you sleep. Why won't you tell us? I open the bag and lay out the things I've brought in order of size on the bed. Never read faces. Why won't you show us? I've said this before, but we wake up really far away from home. The house depreciates. I would be more than willing to have an idea. I tilt my head. There's a man in space. He tries to roll dice. He can't win. He can't lose. And here's one last relatively recent one called Negative Light. Watching the forest from the inside, I do what I know to vanish. I don't want to be found. The trees cast shadows and shapes that I can call a home because this is where I live now, in tree shadow. I learned to eat tree shadow, drink it. I'm not being dishonest when I say I vanish. In the forest here, among moving light, the invisible man will live in the shade. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for those poems. I love that. I love that you like maybe inadvertently repeated a line of your own. It reminds me of like Lil Wayne googling his own lyrics, like when he writes his songs. And that was again David Wojciechowski, who you can find on Twitter at Mr. Wojo Rising, MrWojoRising. And David's book, Dreams I Never Told You and Letters I Never Sent, is available so you can read part one from Goldwake, published in 2017. So without any further ado, we enter the back half of our order so quickly, and luckily the back half of our order is on one Skype account, so logistically this is beautifully easy. So I'm really excited to introduce the first of our representatives. Kristin read some more work from One Art, a journal of poetry, but our next couple of readers have very, very close involvement with that journal, and the first of them is Mark Danowsky. Mark Danowsky is editor-in-chief of One Art, a journal of poetry, senior editor for Schuylkill Valley Journal, poetry craft essays editor for Cleaver Magazine, and a regular contributor for Versification. He's the author of poetry collection As Falls Trees from Night Ballet Press, and John, Jawn, forthcoming from Moonstone Press. So Mark, thanks for being with us, repping One Art, and take it away.
Thank you. Having mild tech issues. Thank you for having me. Us. Delighted to be here. Thanks for the lovely intro. Props to you for saying Schuylkill correctly. That's impressive. And I don't know. I have to give. There we are. Okay. And that Lil Wayne comment is sticking with me. Also, everybody go to Wojo's Twitter account and check out that meme with Rudy and Kickball. Anyway, I see the laughter. Okay. So I'm going to read just a couple poems. And it's been a pleasure. It's not. None of these are really about what they sound like they are. They're about something else entirely. But you'll think of it later while you're lying awake in bed, thinking, about the future and Caligula. Okay, so this is called Interlude, and it was actually recently published in Eunoia Review. So thank you, Ian. Interlude. If only each of us came together with a care manual. Moments for touch, moments for silence, moments left to our own private griefs. Our play is backdrop for sightings of foundlings at the backyard suet. I get a little proud of us eating soup with barley for a beat too long. If you have enough past, it's dangerous to lose awareness of what comes back and what cannot. And now I'm going to put on glasses so I can see better and look sexier also at the same time, like Clark Kent or the other guy that he impersonates. Okay, this next poem was published in Gargoyle at one point, and I don't know, I just love reading this one out loud because it's one of those rare moments where you like impress yourself, and then you're very delighted that you've impressed yourself a little bit. Okay, it doesn't even sound like, this is not like everyday me. This is how I wish I talked every day. Okay, this is called Grace. Crows remember our faces, though we can't tell them apart. Some crows know water better than a child, but don't care how much of it we have. Elephants hear me as you see me, generic, rank among the broken, who rampage, who trample. All elephants learn touch soothes. One places its trunk in another's mouth, taking in the silence. And this I'm kind of excited about. It might be a little bit struggles to follow aloud. But so it appeared in Gray Sparrow. Thank you, Diane Smith. And it's actually going to be in the second anthology, the second Keystone anthology for Pennsylvania Poets, which I'm pretty amped about, because as soon as I heard there was going to be a second one, actually no, just ever since there was a first one, I was like, man, if there's ever a second one, I really, really want to be in that. So happy. Okay. Passing through southeastern Pennsylvania towns in winter. Wawa set to Route 52 south out towards Mushroom Country. I drive a stranger's family, oldest son riding shotgun. Warm winter through the car's speakers, a stag darts rack-on magnificent starburst by high beam glare could have flipped us through the wire. We trudge on past Lenape Road, wind and wind, feeling the elevation on a one-way road called 2. Earlier, Nantmeal Township, then a chopped grain field, entering Lyonsville, shades of beige, all the space filled in with geese, God knows how many. It's sunny outside today, first and 3, I want to say sub-zero temps, but most towns within 25 miles offer a light flurry. In Nantmeal, trees stilled by ice, the gleam of bare branches staggers. I roll the window down to photograph frozen wine vines. Roads open up out here, the air more crisp, quiet. It seems easier, hours still before dusk. Okay, so this one is a cute poem with a sad intro. Sadly, tragically, without too much disclaimer, my mother died early in the pandemic. She went in for heart surgery, and there was an aftermath that was very, very bad. But so here's a poem. So there were actually 7 published together in Odaliths, which was very nice, because it was nice to have them all grouped together. But this one is a little bit of a lighter note. It's called My Mother's First Visit After Her Death. 4 months after her death, my mother visits me in a dream, in the basement of a house our family no longer owns. Before she arrives, my father is oddly fixing things, though in a perfectly standard way for him. He is saying not to throw away junk we are never going to need for MacGyvering purposes. I cannot remember the last time music was playing in a dream. Music was playing. A whole playlist, it seems. When my mother arrives, November Rain is on. Mom asks, who sings this? I say, Axl Rose. And she says, no, that can't be right. And I say, it's Guns N' Roses. And she shakes her head. For a moment, we're just listening to Guns N' Roses, and I'm wishing the music playing was something she liked. And this is not a lucid dream. And then, because I'm always foolishly talking, I say, I haven't seen you in 4 months, and we're going to argue about Axl Rose. And then, of course, she disappears, and I'm alone in the basement of the house taken from my family. All right, and this is the final poem. This is Canopy, which came out in Blue Pepper just a little bit earlier in 2021. So thank you, Justin Lowe. Canopy. Just another day of family and politics, and how to make the irretrievable past disappear into sunshine tomorrow. As if talking about it helps pivot from this place of stasis without coming to terms with yourself and the masks you choose each day, blur until the chameleon finds whatever still feels safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for sharing those poems with us. And that, again, was Mark Danowsky, who you can find on the socials at MarkDanowsky. And again, Mark is the editor-in-chief of One Art, a journal of poetry. So check out One Art at One Art Poetry, OneArtPoetry.com. And speaking of One Art Poetry, I'm very, very excited to introduce our next reader, who is the consulting editor for One Art, a journal of poetry, and that is Louisa Schnaithmann. Louisa Schnaithmann is the author of Plague Love for Moonstone Press in 2021. Her poetry can be found or is forthcoming in The Mantle, Rogue Agent, Gargoyle, and the Broadkill Review, among others. And she's the consulting editor for One Art, a journal of poetry. She lives in Philly. So thank you, Louisa, for being here with us and for repping One Art.
Thank you so much for having me. So I figured I'd read a few poems from Plague Love and a few new poems that are coming out in journals soon. So let's see. So Plague Love basically is about my relationship with Mark formed during the pandemic. We met and fell in love like during the pandemic, pretty much, like during lockdown. And I wrote these poems all in April of 2020, and they just got published a few months ago. So it's very exciting. This is a rebel poem. Let's imagine then a world without plague. We kiss in color outside, the burning sun making our bodies sweat. We would rather be there. The known world now is miasmic. Every breath is a mistake, a tolling bell of warning. An escape isn't possible. No dream to wake from, we try sleep instead, only to find it lacking. All my dreams are nightmares these days. I'd lie close to you if I could. I'd make love endlessly, each touch a bright revolt, the only coup I support. Thank you. Scraps of a love poem. I have to write a poem today, so this one, like all of them, is for you. Let's try this again. Not the poem, but the pandemic. Have it start without beginning, as all dreams do. I don't want this nightmare any longer. Stuck indoors, pacing, I wait for you. There are so many metaphors here, but none suffice. You are not easily described. That's something I like. Capturing you isn't easy. I refuse metaphor again here, only want you in the flesh, real. And I apparently wrote a poem called Imagine, which I think is very funny because it's just like, I just think of the song every time I read it. but this poem is called Imagine. The brick facade of a local row home fascinates me, but you defer to fresh flowers instead, want only wild things woven in my hair. I would say skyscrapers are monuments to men, but then you might insist upon lying down in the meadow of the arboretum, holding me close and kissing me. I cannot argue. The meadow, with its buttercups and violets, is inviting. I still stare at the sky, make clouds into rabbits, butterflies, hearts. You turn my head to meet your gaze, lips grazing my neck. I forget about the house, the tall city buildings with their hot metal, the soft light of the spring sun, your arms. This is all I require. I want to read. Every name has its power. If there is a way to get out of this, let it be love. What else would bring such possibility? I dream of you at night and murmur your name in the bright morning. This is the only way I know how to survive. Body talk. In the quiet night, I curl towards your body, my own a comma to your parenthesis, punctuation making no sense except to us. We can write new words for love, explode the meanings of the old ones, interrogate them until we arrive at a grammar that is all our own. Diagram this sentence. I am in love with a remarkable man. We don't need to. The syntax does not hide from us, will not confuse or obscure itself. I want your words on my lips, your lips on my thighs, your thighs pressed against mine. If scholars speak of the body and its language, they forget the heart and its beating, forget your gentle hands, forget the soft wave of your hair. Body language is not sufficient. The word love is insufficient. I think the word I am looking for is closer to, and correct me if I am wrong, holy. And I believe I'm going to read 2 new poems that are forthcoming in journals. So I've got 2 new poems. This one's called Help Me Out Here. Even the tenacious bluebirds who squabble over mealworms in the backyard know that you must go full throttle into this world, hold everything in a wide wonder, because the revolution of the earth and the muscles of our bodies, and yes, too, the mealworms are all sacred. They're not dumb, those birds. I don't mean to sanctify everything, except that I do. What is it that we're meant to do here, if not praise? And this will be my final poem. It's based on a true story. It's called Driving Through Penn Valley on Our Way to View an Apartment. The rain comes down in drenches, swells the banks of green streams below us. You swear you aren't nervous. I sweat, hold the inside of the car door, white-knuckled. My hands ache and I almost retch. Flashers on, plowing through waters dark and thick with dirt. This is how you show your love for me. Little dangerous acts, a way into my heart, an opening to make my life crack wide and burst like the walls holding the school back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for ending us with the Schuylkill. That's a beautiful note on which to end. And that, again, was Louisa Schnaithmann, who you can find on Twitter at Eben in the Hedges and on Instagram at that same tag, EBONINTHEHEDGES. GES. And again, Louisa's chapbook, Plague Love, is available from the Moonstone Arts Center, the Moonstone Press, which you can find at moonstone-arts-center.square.site. So wow, that's so with that emotional roller coaster of things we have just heard, we are actually coming to the end of our 33rd reading event. So thank you so much to all of our readers for sharing their beautiful work with us this evening, and thank you to our listeners for giving this hour or so of your lives over to poetry. I hope that if you're listening with a sheaf of new poems close at hand, you might consider dropping us a line at Performance Anxiety, so Performance ANXT on Twitter, or you can email me, tomsnarsky@gmail.com, if you'd like to share your work at a future event. We have readings coming up on December 16th, January 20th, every third Thursday from here on out. So thank you for considering reading with us, and we'd love to see you there. So since we always try to do one thing, which is end with a poem, and since we've got a little bit of time, I'm going to take my obnoxious host privilege a little bit, and I'm going to read a poem from Mark Kirshen's one and only book. So this book is called Piers End. It was published in 1980, right after Mark died, and this poem is the title poem called Piers End. The end of the pier is November, the growing storm of leaves moving in now. Our hearts are unmasked as centuries where the earth begins crumbling to laced reeds. A bare tree maps the nerves of birds. Even here we cannot ride away from the legends, but a blue light thickens, curls near the upright twigs. I know it's dusk. The road ends at the seawall. Past love dissolves in salt and hollow winds. The eye widens to the long casual coastline. Foam mosaics that waver, drift apart. The eye learns love from light. A white expanse of beach, pure, unmixed as fire that a fingertip would plunge into history. The eye learns love from light. If the coins in your pocket are faceless, if your fingers shake making music, you have a right to search the shore for a message, a note tossed for years in the shallows. Let the gray water reflect the straight lines of a city hammered up in stone. Each place the heart needs is a beach, flat and burning under a wash of signals the body can't accept. The body and its tender money will not buy everything, but the heart in a form of poverty will shape and paint the figures of women to front dramatic ships aimed at ports it knows only as black dots on a map. For Rosemary. Water flowing, you drifting by the willows, the city you deserted, a film of fumes still coats the new buds behind you. This was not innocence. And there is nothing that hasn't used your heart to delight in tree swirl and the perfect veins of leaves and continue walking. The decision is political. But such delight sent you far, become a rose robbed of scent and color, adrift, transparent, out along the rigid horizon. Turning and rising with the waterline's first light, gulls juggle the cold air above the morning water. Soluble world of boulders and a thinning shore, surprised by sudden small waves, a loud, causeless splashing against the pier. I remember the hesitant life of hand and mind waking somewhere behind me. Testing out words as if your act could stay afloat in the gull's world. In settling down to think, have I moved a crucial stone? Puns sink like rocks. I want to speak a word with the multiple meanings churned up in the sea foam, the little random bursts out on the surface of the water, a word like solution, an answer, and the weight of the world dissolving in the sea. The hunger of the sea is a hunger for words, a mind stranded on a coast racing in the dawn light. Morning announces again the virgin birth of the galaxy, a power that called to itself to be born. Light streams both up and down in the open space between two clouds. I cut my hands and filter seawater through, recoil from the stink of the kelp. Sand lines the grooves of the gravestone names. The circle of the graveyard grass is flooded. What will you say in the face of the sun star and sea, anxious to speak? In the face of the light, both mother and child? You would need a song, a promontory music that new winds would blow back in, Maybe beauty making beautiful old rhyme in praise of ladies dead and lovely nights. Salt will scrub out the folds in the boulder. You'd have to send it into the air. My inland life is a blur of certain faces and gesturing hands. If the sands were the ashes of the dead, you would have to send that song into the sea, or the mystery of the wave and particle light that will not stop flowing, less breakable than a beach. Sound wave, water wave, the bending clang of the buoy in the full morning. Piers end in wind, water, light. Words have not kept the seabirds from going off into day. The words fade too. Light on the water, untimed seashell sounds. I'll stay.